Lost time. What if you learned at 50 that nothing you remember is real? What if your entire life was actually someone else's life? The story I'm about to tell you will show how deceptive memory can be. Are you ready? Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. My name is Linda Patterson. I'm 50 years old and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm an elementary school teacher. I've been working at the same school for 25 years. I've been married to my husband Michael for 20 years. I have an 18-year-old son, James. I have a calm, orderly life. At least I thought so until that accident happened last week. It all started that Friday evening. On my way home from work, my head started aching. It was a very severe pain. I had never experienced anything like it before. I pulled the car over. My vision was blurring. I don't remember what happened next. When I woke up, I was in the hospital, lying in intensive care. Michael was sitting next to me, looking worried. The doctor came and said I had suffered a brain aneurysm. I was very lucky. The surgery had been successful, but I needed to rest for a while. The first days went normally. Visitors came. I tried to recover, but I started noticing strange things. The nurse at the hospital kept addressing me by a different name. Not Linda, she said Sarah. I tried to correct her, but she insisted. Also, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I felt strange, as if this face didn't belong to me. Of course, it could have been post-surgery confusion. One day when Michael came to see me, I asked him about our son James. When would he come? Michael looked at me strangely. He asked which James the first was asking about. I replied, our son James, our 18-year-old son. Michael said with a sad expression that we didn't have children. We had been married for 20 years, but couldn't have children. I was shocked. I remembered James very clearly. His birth, growing up, high school graduation ceremony. I remembered everything. I called the doctor. I wanted him to explain this situation. The doctor said temporary memory confusions could occur after brain surgery. He said it would get better in a few days. But days passed. My condition didn't improve. On the contrary, I started remembering stranger things. Everything I remembered about my childhood was different. When I told Michael my childhood stories, he was also surprised. He had never encountered these stories. One day I said my mother's name was Sarah. Michael reminded me that my mother's name was Mary, but I remembered Sarah very clearly. When I described our house, I also said wrong things. I said our house had 2 floors. We had a big garden. But Michael reminded me of our small single-story house. The strangest thing was my memories about work. I said I had worked at the same school for 25 years, but I remembered teachers and principals I had never met. After Michael took me home, I understood the seriousness of the situation. Nothing at home seemed familiar. The rooms were different. The furniture was different. The photos on the walls were different. I felt like this house didn't belong to me. I looked at the photographs. There were pictures taken with Michael, but I didn't recognize the woman in those pictures. Her facial features resembled mine, but that wasn't me. When I looked in the mirror, I had the same strange feeling. This face belonged to me, but it felt like a stranger. Michael was very worried. We called the doctor again. He came home. The doctor did a detailed examination. My brain functions were normal, but there were serious problems related to memory. He asked me very strange questions. Did I know my real birth date? Where was my real birthplace? Did I recognize my family? These questions confused me even more. Of course I knew, but what I said didn't match what Michael knew. The doctor said special tests needed to be done. Maybe there was a more serious condition. The next day, I went to the neurology department of a large hospital. Dr. Johnson examined me. Very detailed tests were done. Brain scan, blood tests, psychological evaluations. The results came a week later. Dr. Johnson wanted to have a very serious conversation with us. He revealed a shocking truth to me. I wasn't Linda Patterson. My real name was Sarah Mitchell. I was 50 years old, divorced, childless. I wasn't living in Phoenix. I had been staying at this hospital for the last 3 months. What Dr. Johnson told was incredible. I was a patient suffering from severe depression and dissociative disorder. My real life had been very painful. My husband had cheated on me. We divorced. I had lost my job. I was estranged from my family. I was a very lonely and unhappy woman, unable to bear this situation. My brain had created an alternative identity, the Linda Patterson identity, the identity of a happy married woman with children, successful. This identity was so elaborately constructed that it had replaced my real memories. The person I knew as Michael was actually Dr. Michael Thompson, my doctor. He had been taking care of me for 3 months. My looking at him as a husband was also part of my illness. I perceived the relationship between doctor and patient differently. The son I remembered as James was completely imaginary. I had never had children. I collapsed in the face of this information. Was everything I had lived for 3 months a lie? Dr. Johnson was gradually revealing the truth. When I first came to the hospital, I was in very bad condition. I had attempted suicide. My family had brought me to the hospital, but I didn't recognize them. I was even afraid of them. That's when the alternative identity kicked in, the Linda Patterson identity. I felt happier and safer with this identity. The doctors didn't want to intervene in this situation because the Linda identity kept me stable. But after I suffered the brain aneurysm, the identities started getting mixed up. My real self was slowly emerging. These explanations made me very sad, but also enlightened me. It was understandable why I didn't recognize my house, why I didn't recognize my photos. Dr. Johnson gave information about the treatment process. Returning me to my real identity could take months. He asked if I wanted to meet my real family. I was scared, but I accepted. The next day my real family came. My mother Mary, father Robert, and sister Jennifer. I didn't recognize them at all, but they loved me very much. Their eyes were filled with tears. My mother told me my childhood stories, my real childhood stories. They were completely different from what I remembered. My father had brought old photographs, real family photos. I slowly started remembering. My sister Jennifer told me how much she missed me. We hadn't talked for the last 2 years because I had fallen out with everyone. This meeting was very emotional. On one hand, I was happy to find my real family. On the other hand, I was sad to lose my imaginary family. As days passed, my real memories started coming back, but they were painful. I remembered my real husband Steve, how he cheated, how we separated. It had hurt so much. I remembered the problems I experienced at work, being fired due to poor performance. I remembered losing my friends, being in debt, falling into depression. As these memories came, the Linda identity weakened. My attachment to Michael Dr. Thompson decreased. Now I started seeing him as a doctor, not as a husband. Memories about James also started disappearing. Those beautiful childhood memories, moments I was proud of, they were all imaginary. During the treatment process, I started working with psychologist Dr. Martinez. We tried to understand the reasons for this identity confusion. Dr. Martinez explained dissociative identity disorder to me. It was the brain's self-protection mechanism after major traumas. My real life had been so painful that my brain had created an escape route. The Linda identity was this escape route. Linda Patterson had everything I wanted to be: happy marriage, loving child, successful career. But now I had to face reality. The Linda identity was temporary. This process was very difficult. Sometimes I wanted to go back to Linda. That identity was much more comfortable. But Dr. Martinez said real healing was only possible with the real identity. There were weeks of therapy sessions. I slowly started accepting the Sarah Mitchell identity. My real life was painful, but now it belonged to me. Linda's life was beautiful, but fake. I talked a lot with my mother Mary. How I got to this state, where we went wrong. She was very supportive. She said I needed to leave the past behind and start over. My father was also very understanding. He wanted to help solve my financial difficulties. My sister Jennifer suggested I move to her house. Living alone was difficult. After staying in the hospital for 3 months, I was discharged. But now as Sarah Mitchell, not Linda Patterson, I moved to Jennifer's house. I tried to make a new beginning. I started looking for work. But since Linda's 25 years of experience was fake, I had no references. I found a job as a waitress at a small cafe. Starting a new job at 50 was difficult, but I had to. I tried to clean up the remnants of my old life. I paid debts, emptied my old apartment. I also talked to Steve. We had experienced very bad things during the divorce process. But now I wanted to make peace. He also apologized. We had both made mistakes. He said we would leave the past behind. As months passed, I started getting used to my real life. It was difficult, but real. Sometimes Linda's memories come. That beautiful married life, happy moments with James. But now I know these are imaginary, not real. I still see Dr. Martinez. The healing process continues. He taught me this. Sometimes our brain tells us lies to protect us from pain. But facing reality is always better. Now 6 months have passed. I still live as Sarah Mitchell. Linda Patterson has disappeared. My life isn't as beautiful as Linda's, but it's real. And that's very important. I started making new friendships. I get along well with my co-workers at the cafe. Even a small romantic relationship might begin. Tom, the cafe manager, is interested in me. Starting over at 50 is difficult, but not impossible. But something very strange happened last week. While I was working at the cafe with Tom, a customer came, a middle-aged man. He looked at me and was shocked. He seemed to recognize me. I didn't remember him at all. He said my name as Sarah Mitchell. This could be normal. I was working at the cafe. But then he said something very strange. Where had I been all this time? I asked what he meant. He said I had suddenly disappeared 18 years ago, without leaving any trace. 18 years ago, I was married to Steve. I wouldn't have disappeared yet. The man introduced himself as Dr. Wilson. He was my former psychiatrist. He told me very strange things. 18 years ago, I had suffered a very serious trauma. After that, I had disappeared. But this information wasn't in my treatment records. Dr. Martinez had never mentioned it. Dr. Wilson wanted to talk to me privately. We left the cafe, went to the nearby park. He told me shocking truths. 18 years ago, I had a very serious accident. Car accident. But it wasn't just me. My 8-year-old daughter Emma was also in the car. Emma died. I was injured. My daughter. They had told me I never had children. Dr. Wilson took out photos from files. Photos of me with a little girl, Emma. As soon as I saw her, lightning struck in my memory. I remembered Emma. She was my daughter. A very beautiful, intelligent girl. I loved her so much. But how could I have forgotten her? Why was she never mentioned? Dr. Wilson continued. After the accident, I had experienced a very big trauma. I couldn't accept Emma's death. Then I had also created an alternative identity. But it was a different identity then, not the Linda Patterson identity. I had become someone completely different. Mary Johnson. Mary Johnson lived for 18 years. She built a life without Emma. She married, worked. But the Mary Johnson identity wasn't the person I married Steve either. Steve was someone else. This was getting very complicated. How many identities did I have? Dr. Wilson explained. Multiple personality disorder, now called dissociative identity disorder. It was the brain's way of protecting itself after severe trauma. 18 years ago, I had become Mary Johnson. I had forgotten Emma, built a new life. 3 years ago, the Mary Johnson identity collapsed. Steve's cheating caused major trauma. Then Linda Patterson was born. Now Linda had also collapsed. Sarah Mitchell had emerged. But the real Sarah Mitchell was Sarah Mitchell, who was Emma's mother. I was shaken by this information. So I had a daughter, and I had forgotten her. Dr. Wilson told me more things about Emma. She was a very talented child. She played piano, loved to paint. He told me the beautiful moments we spent together, the games we played in the park, the books we read together. As I heard these things, I started remembering Emma's smiling face, her voice, her smell. How could I have forgotten my daughter? Dr. Wilson said my brain had tried to protect me. The pain was too great. Forgetting had been easier. But now that I remembered her, what should I do? Dr. Wilson took me to visit Emma's grave. I hadn't been there for 18 years. Mary Johnson and Linda Patterson didn't remember Emma. When I stood at the grave, I experienced great devastation. My daughter had really died. I had lived 18 years in her absence, but hadn't realized it. That night, I told Jennifer everything. My sister was also shocked. Did she remember Emma? Jennifer answered, crying. Of course she remembered. She loved Emma very much. Why didn't you ever mention her for 18 years? I asked. Jennifer said the doctors had forbidden it. They had told her not to mention Emma. so I wouldn't relive the trauma. My family was also part of this conspiracy. They had all hidden Emma's existence. But now I knew the truth. Sarah Mitchell wasn't just me. She was Emma's mother. The next day, I discussed this issue with Dr. Martinez. He was also surprised. There was information about Emma in the files, but he hadn't told me. He thought it was too early. What should we do now? Would the Sarah Mitchell identity that remembered Emma be accepted? Dr. Martinez said this was a very important development. I was now remembering the real trauma. But at the same time, it was very risky. I would face the pain of Emma's death again. This process could take months. Maybe I could experience new identity crises. Was I ready to face this pain? I thought about it. I had been running away for 18 years. It was enough now. I wanted to remember Emma. I wanted to bring back the beautiful memories we had lived together. I accepted the treatment process. This time I would really find my real identity. Not just Sarah Mitchell, but Sarah Mitchell, who was Emma's mother. Intensive therapy lasting weeks began. We tried to bring back memories about Emma. At first, it was very painful. Reliving her death was very difficult. But then, beautiful memories started coming. The happy moments I spent with her. Emma's first steps, first words, the pictures she drew for me, the songs she sang. These memories hurt because I knew she was no longer there. But at the same time, they made me happy because they were real. After 3 months of therapy, I finally became myself, my real self. Sarah Mitchell, Emma's mother, a mother who lost her daughter but remembers her. Now I visit her grave regularly. I bring her flowers, sing songs. I made peace with the pain I had been running from for 18 years. Emma's death is very painful, but her having lived is very beautiful. Now all 3 different identities have disappeared. Mary Johnson, Linda Patterson, they were all escape routes created in Emma's absence. Now I exist, the real me, with her pain, with her happiness. Sarah Mitchell, who is Emma's mother. At 50, I finally found myself. I thought I was late, but it was the right time. I continue working at the cafe. Tom and I have gotten closer. I told him about Emma. He responded with understanding. I hung Emma's photos in my house. I don't hide her anymore. She's my daughter. I'm proud of her. Dr. Wilson still takes care of me. After 18 years, I had found my real identity. Sometimes I miss Emma, but I don't run from her memory anymore. She was my daughter. She had a short life, but she was a very beautiful girl. This is my real story. Not at 50, but for the 3rd time I found myself. The first me was Emma's mother. The second me was Mary Johnson. The third me was Linda Patterson. Now I'm Emma's mother, Sarah Mitchell again. It was a very long journey, but I finally came to the right place. What do you think? Is it better to face painful truth or live with happy lies? I now know the answer. Truth is always better. My truth with Emma is very painful, but very valuable. Share your thoughts in the comments.